Alright, capturing some weaving here. This is something I picked up during the pandemic. Pattern I'm working on, you can see as a design, and I actually have two versions of this printed out, so that way it can, the end of each thing, I'll use the other one, so anything that gets twisted on one way will be untwisted on the next one. So this is the pattern I'm starting on right here. You see I leave a little loop of it left over every time before I turn, so I can pull it tight after I twist the cards. In this particular part of the pattern, all the cards are being twisted in one direction, in this case forward, as you can see by the things that are not shaded. So I'll do that a total of 8 times for the beginning of this pattern. You can see on these cards they actually have numbers on them. I'm not using the numbers on this particular pattern. I'm using the variation and the different styles of cards here to know which one is my next one to do when I start doing some forward, some backward. But whenever the number on the end is up, I know I've gotten to the end of a set of 4. I've done these first 8, so the next 2 are both turning towards me as opposed to away from me, like I did the first 8 turns. And now you'll see on the pattern that some of it's shaded and some of it's not. Well, I happen to know that those, in this particular pattern, that's going to be these 2 cards right here, so I don't have to count which ones they are on the pattern. But in this case, these 2 will go forward, the rest will go back. And I will do that for 2 turns. And now this next section I'm going to do 3 different times. So sometimes some of them are going forward, some of them some backwards, sometimes all forward, all backwards. That'll give the twist. You can see here that this matches the first part of the pattern where it looks like it is twisted kind of up on top of itself. And now because it's these other 2, I know it's these two particular cards as opposed to the white ones. Now all forward for 2 turns. Now all backwards for 2 turns. And you can tell I'm at the end of a set of 4 because the number's on top. And these patterns, the more you do them, you get used to kind of the way you do it, so it gets to be fairly mindless at some point. Some patterns are a lot more complex, a little bit harder to be mindless, but this one I've done plenty of because I really like how it looks. And then we'll pull these two forward, backward. And now you can see we've kind of got one complete twist going on here. So I'm going to do this section 2 more times, then we'll finish it out with this end section to make it so that it ends up kind of the looking like an end piece to it. This particular loom that I'm using is the smaller one of the two that I have. I need to get a repair done on my little bit larger loom. So this one I can do trim, and that's what this particular piece here is. This is going to be trim for one of my tunics. But I wouldn't do a belt on this particular loom. I would have to do that on my other loom, which is a lot larger, which I will try and show in another video. You'll see that I hold tension on this loop when I pull it through. Sometimes if I don't do that, the yarn will get all kind of wound up and then it'll leave like a little knot on there. So that's why I tend to hold that when I'm pulling through. Now as I do this, because the yarns are now kind of going up and down underneath the thread here, this does get tighter and tighter the further I go, and so eventually you need to loosen this up, and I'll show you that when I get done kind of with the whole cycle here to reset where everything is sitting at, and to loosen it up. Alright, now I'm starting the last section of the pattern here, which starts off the same as the other ones, but then finishes off with a whole bunch all in one direction to kind of give it that nice end to it there. can't say I'm the most efficient at doing this compared to other videos I've seen of people doing it, but I get by. And now we finish off with 8 different turns backwards. You'll notice over here on the right hand side of the pattern, you see how there's the different shading in the X, and so the way it controls the things that control what the pattern looks like, it's not only the direction you're turning the threads, it's which holes have which threads. And in this particular pattern, what you'll see here are the 10 middle cards that I'm using. I actually have a total of 16 cards in here, so I have 3 on each end to kind of give it the border, and then what they're showing here is strictly what you see with the inside. Yeah, that's right. All right, and now I'm going, so I start, the numbers are up, so I know that I'm kind of at the multiple of 4, so I do the 8 backwards. And 8. So now I have done kind of that complete section of the pattern. You can see on here, that is what I just accomplished here. Now, you see my working area is now decreased. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that these things don't move around while I do some adjustments, I actually have the kind of, big safety pin, as it were, to put through there. And that makes sure that all the cards stay in place. I loosen up this part of the loom, and that allows me to move that down, pull it to retighten. Like I say, in this case now I'm going to switch to the other direction of the pattern, which looks very similar, and then we'll just do another round of that.